All right, we are rolling. Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Cruz. Welcome to the Culture Code. I'm excited for our guest today. She is the Chief People Officer at NerdWallet, Lynee Luque. Lynee, welcome. And where are you joining from today?
I'm joining from a small town in California called Lodi.
Lodi. So tell us, where is Lodi? California's a big state. Where's Lodi?
Lodi is about 90 minutes east of San Francisco. It sits on top of what we call our kind of breadbasket of California. So lots of agricultural work that happens here. And I always say that we grow my favorite thing, which is wine grapes.
Ooh.
So Lodi is one of the largest producers in the United States of wine grapes, and Zinfandel is the specialty.
Very nice, very nice. I'm more of a red myself, but I appreciate all of that. There's a lot of people don't know that beyond the Bay Area, in that part of California, the agriculture is so strong. And I remember the first time I drove through Gilroy, the odor I smelled was what, Lynee? What did I smell?
Garlic.
Garlic. I think it's like the garlic capital of the world, and you literally could smell it in the air.
Yeah, it is. It is. I know everyone confuses, our great cities that we have on the coast, San Francisco and LA, and there is just a different and rich, kind of farm and agricultural part of the state as well. So
I love it. I love it. So let's start at the very beginning. NerdWallet. So a lot of people will be familiar with your company, but maybe some others out there are not. So what does NerdWallet do? Where's headquarters? How big are you guys?
Yeah, so NerdWallet, we are a platform where we provide financial guidance, financial information to consumers, so people like me and you, as well as small and medium businesses. Our mission is to provide clarity for all of life's financial decisions, and as you can imagine, that is very important right now. And in oversimplified terms, this is like if you're looking for a credit card with a really good balance transfer rate, if you're looking for that home equity line of credit because nobody can move anymore and you just want to make your house really nice, you can find information on our platform around those topics. We're about 750 employees. Most of our employees really do center in the United States. A few years ago, we turned to a remote first company. So answering the question around headquarters is a little bit trickier than it used to be. We consider San Francisco still a headquarters. However, over 50% of our folks are working from home, working from smaller towns like Lodi, and not the big city like San Francisco.
I'm glad you shared the remote first part of because we're talking about culture, and I think among chief people officers and everyone in HR, I mean, it's just such a hot topic right now, and no one right answer, right? If there was, we'd all be doing the same thing. But to understand the rest of our conversation in that context of remote first, I think is really important. So how would you describe the culture at NerdWallet?
So for this one, I always say, first, how do I define culture? And to me, I took this from an article many, many years ago. Simple form or simple definition for me is how we do things around here. And that shows up in how we behave, the processes and programs that we build, as well as our day-to-day interactions or practices. And when I think about what our mission is and what we provide to consumers, I'm not surprised about how I describe the culture internally to NerdWallet. I consider us extraordinarily thoughtful and responsible because we are trying to help consumers with some of the most, overwhelming topics, financial topics in their life. I also think that we push for transparency as well as accuracy. This really is like the founding of why we do this is because financial topics are always so opaque and confusing, and you try to open up an article and understand something, and I feel like there is that people are designing this so you don't understand the topic. And really, when Tim started the company, it's like, whoa, let's try to take that away so that everyone can have a chance to make really great decisions. And that is just like permeates throughout our culture, that transparency, that accuracy, that responsibility that we have.
Yeah, and even from the outside, I mean, I didn't know those particular traits, but that transparency, and I think what NerdWallet, what I've seen for many years now is such a trusted advisor, and simplifies things, right? And so I have 3 kids who are all in various stages of adulting. So just in the last couple of years, it's like best college credit cards, mortgage rates, new car, used car, all this stuff. Well, if you just do a normal search, you're going to get overwhelmed with all kinds of data. You don't really know where it's from, and NerdWallet just simplifies it, and it's trustworthy, and it's great that mission is really taken to heart. But how does 750 employees, remote first, which is another challenge, and you're trying to make sure that whether they're a new joiner or a veteran, they're living the culture, how we do things, right? I had an old friend who said culture was very similar to what you said, Lynee. Culture is how we do things around here, especially when no one's watching. So you're right. And so how do you foster that kind of culture at NerdWallet? What do you do?
Yeah. So luckily, even when I joined about 3 years ago, the values were so strong here. I really consider us a values-driven company. And that underpins how we behave, whether people are watching or not watching, how we build programs and processes, how we interact and have those practices. And so one of the things that we've done is look at the end-to-end employee lifecycle and say, how do we infuse our values into everything that we're doing end-to-end for folks? So if you were a new joiner trying to become a nerd, we have a values-based interview guide. So our managers, anyone that is sitting on the interview panel, has not only a set of questions that they can ask to assess your functional expertise, but also has a set of questions to uncover, how aligned you are and how you can add to our values and ultimately our culture here. This goes into performance reviews as well. It goes into our development curriculum. And it also goes into fun stuff that we do. So one of my favorite programs that we have is 2 times a year, we celebrate people for living our values. It's called What Good Looks Like. And so employees nominate each other for living the values. And we have winners at the team level, and then we have one ultimate winner at the company level that's celebrated by Tim and everyone. And it's not just a celebration. We describe exactly what they did, living the values. And we try to tell people that this could be role modeled, right? And repeated. So it's really just like an informal, fun thing we do. And you'll hear that around NerdWallet all the time. Even in a tense situation, we'll come back to and we'll be like, what does good look like? What's good look like? And we come back to our values, right? One of our 5 values as like that guiding light.
So what good looks like that twice a year you hold it. I'm just curious, what does the winner get? Sort of bragging rights, a little certificate? Like what does the winner get?
Well, it's definitely bragging rights. If you scroll through our LinkedIn, I was so proud and like smile, big smile came on my face. One of our winners posted on LinkedIn on how they won this, and we set it up. Their peers have to create a business case of wow, how they're living the value. And so they're able to just cut and paste, this is the value. This is what my peers thought that I was doing. And I'm so proud. So definitely bragging rights. You get a ton of visibility. And we do have a small prize that people win. It's not a trophy, although I'm starting to think about how do we get a what good looks like trophy or stuffed animal or something.
Right. I'm scribbling all kinds of notes, Lynee, because people listening probably think I'm just, having fun, but I'm fascinated by recognition, because one most popular pieces of advice when I'm doing talks and stuff is when I talk about strategic recognition, where obviously recognition always feels good, but it's an opportunity. And I say what you call your program. It shows others what good looks like. There's results, but then also how you get results. And so anytime you can thank someone for a behavior and achievement and link it back to a core value, You just turned regular recognition into even more powerful strategic recognition. And of course, the real reward, it's never a gift certificate, or it's not about money or any of that. It's just knowing that people noticed and care about you and what you did. But increasingly, so I've been kind of anti like the trophy idea, whether it's a trophy or whatever. But increasingly, I've realized that those kinds of physical artifacts, especially if they're left in the office, they become powerful symbols for others to see. Oh, we recognize, values twice a year. Oh, Lynee did this great job. It's a great icebreaker for new joiners. Oh, how'd you get that trophy, right? And so as I'm thinking about, our own work in this, the recognition and the process is always going to be the biggest reward, but it's kind of like, there could be some stuffed animal, weird prize thing that gets handed out that becomes legendary, throughout. Now, most of us don't hang out in a physical office, but if I got something, if you gave me something, like, it'd be right behind my bookshelf. So people would know that I'm a champion of the culture,
Yeah. And we have to think about that for a remote, just as you said, like I have a N, I don't know if you could see it.
Oh yeah.
Behind me. And it was, given to me for something when I first joined and stuff. But our team is consistently thinking about that. How do we translate all of our rewards and recognition to that remote friendly?
Yeah.
And it used to be stickers. I don't know if you saw that, but it used to be that you'd put stickers
Oh
on
yeah.
and you running from meeting to meeting and you could see all the really cool stickers. It's like, how do we recreate that concept?
That's right. And I want to make sure, especially for people who are listening and can't see it, you pointed to an N as in NerdWallet, over your shoulder, which is sort of like on a plaque. And what it tells me also is, like, when we give certificates or something like that, often it's the writing, like, oh, Kevin graduated. You can't read that at a distance. And so yours is great. It's a big green N. And so what is the logo, the symbol, some other thing that people would be able to put behind them on a Zoom call that everyone could still recognize exactly what that is? Wow, what a fun tangent we just went down to. So let me shift gears, Lynee. So you've heard the podcast you mentioned, and so you know that I'm a nut about manager training, leadership development, especially frontline leaders who are kind of the culture filter for 80% of your workforce. If you have about 750 employees, I'm just guessing that you've got about 100, give or take, 125 managers. And so that's a lot of managers, but you're a small company. You don't have a big budget, I bet, to do leadership development. So how are you developing and supporting your leaders?
Yeah, well, first things first is we want to make sure that our managers are getting the feedback that they need and they deserve, right, to do their job. So 2 times a year, we do an engagement survey. Mm-hmm. And the engagement survey results will be given to managers, anyone with 4 or more direct reports, because it's anonymous and confidential. But even if they don't get their own report, they could look at the laddered up reports. So that's one way, without a big budget, right, is like, how do we consistently give you the feedback that you need? But we also do invest in manager training. So we have a new manager training, as well as just a general manager training that we conduct 2 times a year. So, it's not conducted 7 or 8 times like it was when I was at a really huge company like Intel, but we do it strategically right after our evaluation period, our company evaluation period, so that people know, like, what do I need to work on? Okay, mm-hmm. Now I'm going to get in this class about manager training and work on those skills. So we do that. It's homegrown, right? So we're conducting it ourselves, and we're taking the topics based on that Nerd Voice feedback and any feedback we're getting mm-hmm. from managers. And the largest part is our just-in-time offerings that we have. So we put together homegrown trainings or facilitated sessions that align exactly with what's going on right now. So if we're asking you to do feedback, here's a feedback module. If we're asking you to take these Nerd Voice results and action plan, we're going to do a module on how you action and how you set goals. So really, that's where a lot of the informal day-to-day, I'm in the trenches and as a manager, training comes from, is that really just in time aligned with whatever's going on in the business.
Yeah, that's great. And again, for the listeners, I think, you sort of downplayed this, but what I think is genius that I don't see in most places is make sure the managers are getting their engagement results, their manager effectiveness scores, et cetera. Too often I see that those results are not shared, and they're separate, completely separate from the development exercises. So it's like employee experience is siloed over here, and they just think their job's to send surveys. Leadership development is siloed over here, and they're disconnected from the feedback that the managers are getting. So they just give whatever they give. Just the fact that you are giving that feedback and linking it together, I think, is really, really important. And you mentioned, I love the terminology, your nerd voice, the employee voice survey a couple times a year. Are there other ways you're gathering data about your culture as well?
Yeah, so we have some informal mechanisms that, I'll be honest with you, sometimes keep me on my toes. So we use Slack like many other companies, and about once a quarter, we do an open Ask Me Anything. So we dedicate 1 hour where all the executives will be on Slack, and we are encouraging, soliciting, asking employees to ask us anything. And we answer real time.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sitting there like giving responses no matter what the questions are, super simple questions to really complex, difficult, decisions that we're making. And so that happens informally, as well as we have town halls that are on about a monthly cadence. And as part of our town hall, we open up a Q&A, and we open it up about an hour before the town hall, and we start to collect questions, and we answer those questions real time, right when we're done with town hall content. So as you can imagine, I think so much rich real-time feedback comes from these open Q&A sessions, and it just supplements what we start hearing in Nerd Voice, which are more of the 2 times 6 months, every 6 month feedback. Of course, we have 5 values, like I said. One of our values is open, candid, and constructive. And we call each other out on that all the time. How can we be more OCC? So we do everything as an acronym here, right? And it's just like, are they being OCC? How can we be more OCC? So it can show up as well in just our everyday interactions. When I go back to that simple version of culture, right? How we do around here, how we interact with each other, how we behave. So we really lean on our values again to bring out that feedback.
I love it that, values are taken seriously when it becomes part of the jargon, part of your nerds are talking about OCC, like it all, to an outsider, it's like, what? But it makes sense internally. I love it. You covered like a lot of great stuff already. Is there any other programs or initiatives that, you're especially proud of, or you just want to make sure we put a spotlight on?
Yeah, one of the things that I personally love doing and bring with me to every company, every organization that I'm a part of is, really weaving our diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging into everything that we do. So often, I think it's easy for organizations to keep it as a separate thing, as you mentioned before with some other stuff. And here, I really believe that the way that we can be effective is if we just weave it in to all our day-to-day practices. So we take that to heart here. We have a really great ESG report that is out there, and our DEIB efforts is one of the spotlights and one of the highlights that we're proud of here, as well as we do a special development program for our mid-level employees. So usually, like you said, managers and leaders get the training that is available, even if you have a really small budget. The budget usually goes to that cohort. And sometimes we forget about those folks that are in the middle and they haven't quite reached management. They're not on the cusp of leadership, but we want them to be prepared for when those opportunities come up. And that's where we find a lot of our drop off in diversity. So we decided to target an effort. We don't want drop off. We want retention. We want you to be developed and ready for that, big position. So we run a career advancement program that has historically been about a year long. We're going to do it 6 months now, shorten it a bit, make it more efficient. But really just having that investment and that spotlight on that cohort of employees has been something that I'm personally proud of.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Let's switch to some a little bit more fun, a little bit more fast questions maybe. Starting with, what if I gave you a magic wand and you could wave it and like every nerd read a particular book or listened to a podcast or something, some piece of media that you wanted them to consume, what would you send everyone?
Wow, you included podcasts in there, and I always think that's fun. But book-wise, I do have books, ton of books behind me. I'm moving aside for those on the podcast, and all the books that I have behind me are related to work. One of my favorites that I think is really relevant right now because of the macro environment as well as what we're doing here in NerdWallet is the classic Mindset by Carol Dweck. So it's really the fixed mindset versus growth mindset. Mm-hmm. And why I think that's relevant to nerds right now is because there is so much uncertainty out there. What skills are relevant? What is that new thing? We're talking about AI. How's that going to change my job? How's that going to change everything that I'm doing? How the economy is reacting, how our services and offerings and products need to look different based on what's going on. And I think it's so easy for people to fall into that fixed mindset, right? And right now, if we want to continue to build a really great company and have a great offering for our consumer, it's about embracing the growth mindset and seeing these things as challenges that we can adapt to.
Yeah, very timely. I mean, I can't remember what year that book came out, but it feels like so fresh, more fresh and relevant today than when it first came out, right?
Yeah.
Incredible. What you're coming off as cool, calm, and collected, Lynee. Like you've got this culture stuff all figured out. What's something that you know now that maybe you wish you knew when you first became a chief people officer? I want you to send a Slack message to the younger version of yourself. What would you say?
Well, so I think one of the things that is maybe a misnomer is we call this role chief people officer, which makes it seem that our contribution and our day-to-day is mostly going to be around the people agenda. And I would say it's been opposite for me. The 2 times that I've been in this role, I very much find myself in more of the general manager mindset and, kind of skill set that I'm leaning on way more than just the stuff that I learned when I was growing up as a people partner or in HR. So, I mean, we have to go toe to toe with the CFO, with the compensation committee, because most chief people officers have purview over salary expense, real estate expense, and workplace expenses are huge line items. And it's not enough to just go in and say, I think this is right for the people, or this is right for the values. No, we have to do the dollars and cents of what's right for us as an organization, our culture, and what's also business feasible. So, that is a totally different thought than I had thought, than heading into this role. I didn't know I'd have to be, just as good with the numbers as a CFO at times, as well as like assessing risk and thinking about our compliance, needing to go toe to toe with general counsel and having enough, just skill set there, as well as communications. Is, as you know, all of these things that are coming through the external world, our employees really expect us to have a point of view and to have a sense of communications. That's something that's like I have to sit side by side with our head of comms and have a really strong opinion based on business. So less about chief people officer and more just this chief like general manager around everything that can happen in a company. And it's fun. I love variety. It's what keeps me in this role, but it's not necessarily the direction I thought it was going to go in when I first, took the role.
Yeah, you're the first to give that kind of an answer. I really respect it because even CPOs, I hear a lot will talk about, I don't have a voice, or I have the C level title, but it's not at that level. And whether it's their organization or they haven't earned it yet, like you clearly, you're a C-level leader and forget about the people part. Not that that's irrelevant. It's like that's the secondary. The C is the primary, right? And you've obviously learned, and embraced that and grown into that, and are, a valued partner at that C level. And I think that's great advice for others, is like, if you're not there yet, that's where you should be getting to. If you're not being invited into these conversations, if you're not having a challenging conversation with legal or comms or others, okay, why not? Why aren't they bringing you in on that? And I think you're going to motivate some people to think about their role and their level of contribution. We're talking here, it just turned November. I can't believe it. Where is this year going? So next year is going to be here any day now. So in your role, like, what are you and your team going to focus on next year? What's sort of a priority?
And so we just landed on some of our big rock priorities for 2024. It goes back to something you said earlier. We're going to keep our foot on the gas around manager development. We have a new org structure here, and I'll give the headline. It really relies on local decision making more so than we have in the past. And I believe, many managers have been successful because they are given the answer, or they're given, here's the cascaded message, say this, manager. And we're pushing more towards understand what's going on and make a local decision, because you are best equipped. You're closest to the problem or to the opportunity. And so we're going to approach manager development from that lens for 2024. How do we equip them? How do we give them the information so they can make more local decisions? The other thing is we just want to get more flexible in our staffing. As I said, we're mostly US centric right now. And how do we, leverage other workforces outside of the US for our goals? So that's going to be a big, conversation, whether that's outsourced or vendor, or, an actual full-time employee in another region or area. And as you can imagine, that's a whole different skill set.
Yeah.
Right? We're remote, but it's like now the complexity of time zones, potentially, of culture, of language. So there's going to be a really cool opportunity there. As well as our third one, so we always do three. Our third one is, how do we continue to make sure that all of our practices are aligning to a performance-based culture? And a big area or big way that companies can do this is, how do you design your total rewards? Reinforcing whatever performance you want from a company. And we've been on that journey for about 3 years, but we're going to take some bigger swings around how to make that more obvious for people in 2024.
That's great. What about the company overall, with everything going on? What are you most excited about for NerdWallet in the year ahead?
Yeah, I didn't mention this at the top, but I'm a new mom, and I have a 9-month-old.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And so I had a bit of a break when I was on leave, bit of a break from NerdWallet, and it was about 5 months. And I shared with the organization when I came back, I was like, it's almost like a chance to see things with fresh eyes, like as a new employee. And one of the things that I was most excited about is how many new things we're pushing out for consumers. So most recently, we just launched a credit card, NerdUp, it was barely a concept before I went on leave. And so the speed of just what we're shipping for consumers is just incredible. And I think it's really great. So I'm excited about that. What more? We have a lot of stuff that's in the wings and stuff, just to make everything in finances easier for folks. So that's like number one. And then I would just say, continuing to do what you said at the top of the call, which is just anything we offer, how do we make it trustworthy? How do we make sure that it's accurate? How do we make sure that dads like you are saying, yeah, read the NerdWallet article, not this other article, because we trust the information there. So having speed around offerings, offering more, but not losing that trustworthy, kind of advice and guidance that we're giving.
Yeah, a lot of exciting new things. You mentioned that so much of your culture is about transparency, and I feel like you've been super transparent with all of us and the listeners today. I've just learned in the last few interviews that I've done, Lynee, that like what I should even put this in the prep notes. What I'm really doing is I'm listening for ideas that other people can steal from you, and you gave us a bunch of stealable practices, stealable ideas. So that's a good chat. So thank you for being so transparent with all that you're working on. Congratulations on the success that your team has had and NerdWallet. And we'll check in on you probably in about a year. I want to hear about some of these top 3 priorities, your top 3 rocks. How's that sound?
Yep, sounds good to me.
Awesome. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin.